Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting and sight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on concealed carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Hey, Freedom Nation, this is Pete Mitchell.
And I am Dan Sams.
And you are listening to the From Concealment Podcast. I want to say it almost like I'm doing the love line on the radio show. You're listening to the From Concealment Podcast.
Call in for our very special hour.
It was a dark night and rainy out, and it was time for From Concealment.
That's right.
It was funny, man. I literally just got off a Zoom call with these people in Texas who I'm doing business with, non-gun related business. And they're like, why would you want to move to Texas? Everything's out there. There's nothing out here. And I'm like, I didn't want to go there because I know they're really liberal, the people I'm talking to. But I wanted to say, because you have gun freedoms out there, and I don't have those here.
Yep. And you need them, man.
Oh.
Yeah.
They don't understand. They don't understand what they have. These people, they don't get it.
You know what? That is very, very true. I would say it's true of the country in general. People don't know the freedoms they have. And it's the classic, man. It's a lot easier to take people's freedoms if they don't know the ones they have.
Yeah, no doubt.
That actually reminds me of, I had a buddy of mine that was doing some urban ministry here in Northeast Ohio. We won't say the city, but he was doing, and he was noticing in a lot of these families in urban environments that their only association with firearms is that they're being used for something illegal, right? And so he's talking to this kid. He's probably, 18, 19 years old. I don't remember how old he was. Young guy, but an adult, and had no idea that it was ever legal to own a firearm. This is in the United States of America, Midwestern city. Not a super large Midwestern city, right? And so my friend is explaining, no, you realize, there's a gun store. In your town, you could go to that gun store, you could buy a gun. They're 18, so there's, some limits on what you can buy, unfortunately. But yeah, you can buy a gun. And his mind is blown. He thought that, you buy a gun from, Benny on the corner who also sells crack. And
but Benny has the best guns. Let's be honest.
He does. He does. Yeah. Although every now and then, he knows the guy that doesn't know guns comes by, and he's going to be selling the Makarov, that's missing a safety or whatever. And so you got to watch out for that. But he's also your guy.
Do you follow Yeet Tactical on Instagram?
Yes. Yeah.
Dude, they're some of the best images ever from Yeet Tactical. There was one, it's a picture of this guy crying. He's like, your house gets broken into, but at least in your Taurus G something, some gun I never heard of, it jams on you, but at least you got a 2-year warranty on it. It's he's crying because he just got robbed because he couldn't stop it. I'm like, dude, I love Yeet Tactical. It's great images.
They are great. I have a lot of, man. There's so much wonderful things going on when it comes to memes these days. And so I'm having some good fun with that. By the way, if you hear my kids in the background, they're playing in the pool. I promise they're not drowning. Everything's cool. But no, I'm following. Actually, what's funny is I mentioned an Instagrammer that I follow, and I'm talking to a friend of mine who his job involves government contracts. He has to keep his security clearance, whatever. And I out of the blue was like, hey, do you follow ... And I mean, in the name of the Instagram account, told you exactly what it was. He starts laughing. He's like, no, Dan, I don't. I have to make security clearance every year. What are you thinking even mentioning that in my house? Although he's 100% with me.
Yeah, except he knows that they're already listening in on his house.
I know. Yeah. Well, he's rocking a pretty good VPN system. He's actually a good one to talk to. We should actually. Well, he would want to remain anonymous. But
I know they listen in on my house. I got Alexa boxes in every room. Yeah. And do I care? No, I don't. Because I know they listen to me.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple of them in our house. Not to mention, like, your phone is listening. Everything's listening, and the guy who comes over that doesn't even think about it is listening. So, yeah, it is exactly 1984, man.
Well, hey, man, before we get into our topic, I have to share something with you.
Yeah.
So this morning, I got done with my workout. I'm grabbing breakfast. I had this call at 10, and I was like, I need to do a little prep work for the From Concealment podcast. So I finally pulled out the latest issue here of Guns and Ammo, and hadn't read it yet. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at that beauty there on the cover. Look at that sucker.
I love it.
It is a Ruger PC Charger. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's a short barrel rifle. I'm like, well, no, wait a second. It's calling that a stabilizing arm brace. This is a beautiful pistol.
Yes, it is.
Which I can't get in California. But I'm like, I'm reading all about it. I'm like, dude, this is what you use in your house for home defense right here. Put a suppressor on the end of that. Obviously not in California. And wow, man, you got something. Takes Glock mags. I'm like, oh, I got to get out of this state. That looks gorgeous.
It is. It's nice. I think I saw a review of that somewhere. It's getting a little bit of buzz on the Insta. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it was True Exodus. I'm following True Exodus. I'm liking him. He's civilian, and I don't think he has any military law enforcement background, but the dude knows his stuff as far as shooting and concealment shooting. Also happens to be a fellow lover of Jesus. But this dude has some good stuff, and I think he had a review. I think he had his hands on one. Could be wrong. I might be getting him mixed up, but it was pretty cool.
All I can tell you is one of my favorite rifles is my Ruger PCC. So I'm looking at this going, it's basically the same thing, just in pistol form. Like, how beautiful is this sucker going to be?
Oh, yeah. I think that's a good one. So for the guy who hasn't gotten into the AR pistol game or anything like that, I think that's going to be a pretty good handy, because it's going to be a really handy, fits as a short barrel rifle, even though technically a pistol. That's not a bad one to jump into, man. Taking your Glock mags. There's great value in that, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So hey, what else is happening for you out there in Ohio?
Oh man, I'm living the dream out here, man. We're enjoying time with the family. Business is growing. Doing some training. Did some training this weekend, like just on my own. And
in your backyard.
We'll say that something like backyard. Well, in the area behind my house.
I want to live in a free state where I could actually shoot in my backyard. My friend, who's living in West Virginia, or she's maybe in Old Virginia, moving to free Virginia soon. I couldn't quite figure it out. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, what are the gun laws out there? Because she was telling me about some 2-acre property. I'm like, is that big enough to be able to shoot on property? Because it depends on where you live. Some counties, like some places in Texas, you got to have at least 10 acres if you want to shoot on property. And she's like, well, I don't know, but I know we took our guns out and started shooting them, and nothing happened. And I'm like, freedom! I want to move where it's free.
It's awesome, man. Well, what's really fun for me is that I can go out, and especially if I'm just shooting the 22, people aren't even going to notice if I'm shooting the 22. If I'm shooting anything bigger, people notice, and then for the most part, everybody's happy that I'm shooting, so it's fine. But if I'm shooting the 22, it's quiet enough. Nobody even notices, man. And so I just have my fun, get some training in, which we want to talk about a little bit more later today. But training with the 22 is an important thing. I've got some thoughts on that later. But doing some training, man. That's been good. And speaking of training, I'm thinking about buying some more stuff, which I'm always thinking about.
Nice.
But I'm thinking about getting one of these 22 conversion carriers. Or carrier groups. Have you seen this?
No.
Goes in your Brownells carries it. It's a 22 LR conversion kit. All it is it's a bolt carrier. It looks almost like it's skeletonized. Looks kind of funny. goes up in your standard AR, chambered in 5.56 223, and then it has a special kind of mag that goes with it that works with it. So you don't have to change out your upper. You don't have to do crazy stuff. You use your regular AR that you would use for anything else. You put this 22 conversion in it, load up the mags, throw it in there, and you can go to town. You can do real training for inexpensively with your 22. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I think the kits, I've seen them for like everything from around like $200 to $300. But here's where the value comes in, man. First of all, you're training with your actual, your actual fighting rifle, for one thing. But you can put a whole lot more rounds down range. Obviously, like it's going to affect your accuracy a little bit, but you're going to get some training in. And actually, I don't want to say that for sure. Like I'm assuming it's affecting your accuracy.
It does because a 22.
It's not going to.
It's not
just going to be bouncing around in that.
Yeah. Exactly. It is slightly different. No doubt.
So, but I had a couple of buddies that have had them, and they really like them. And so, especially if you end up getting yourself one of those binary triggers, those Fostex we were talking about a little while back, throw one of these in there, you can have some real fun, and you can get some training in for the binary trigger. When are you going to be able to practice that motion, and it not cost you a lot of money? This is one way. And so now with those Fostex Echo Sports down to like $300, get this thing for $175. I think Brownell somewhere else had it for right around there for less than what it would have cost you to get an actual, binary trigger before. Now you get the binary trigger and your conversion kit. You can have all kinds of fun shooting your 22. So think about that and training with your actual fighting rifle. So thinking about doing that, thinking about going ahead and pulling the trigger, pun intended, on the binary trigger. We'll see. Gotta wait for a little bit more money to come in because I could spend that money, but it would make for a lean vacation next
There's
week.
A stimulus check coming. I'm sure of it. I've heard about this this fabled stimulus check.
Oh yes, they keep talking about it. Well, then
I want so bad to go buy a gun and ammo with my wife's EDD card, the California unemployment card. I want to, because that would just piss off California so bad.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Tough. I don't care.
I love it.
So I got to tell a quick story, man.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to go do training for it feels like at least a month. So this last Tuesday, I was like, hey, hun, can I go? She's like, yeah. I'm like, perfect, right? So I get online, sign up. It's freaking miserable hot. Yeah. Like just out here in California, the humidity is awful. And anyway, so this is with Michael Hernandez, the guy I had on the week you were gone.
Yeah.
And so he goes, hey, somehow we get on the subject and he goes, hey, whenever I do a favor for you, that doesn't mean you can pass it on and let someone else take your spot. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So when he came and was on our podcast, we recorded that on a Monday. I think the next day, a Tuesday, there was a training. So after we got off the podcast, I'm like, oh, hey, man, I got to sign up for the training for tomorrow. Maybe it was on the podcast. I can't remember where we talked about it. And he goes, oh, it's already sold out. He goes, look, I'll put your name on the list. Just show up and bring the $40. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, cool. Because I wasn't quite 100% sure if I was going to go or not. And then that was literally the day our freaking dictator governor closed down the state again. Yeah. And so I was like, I don't even know if they're doing it. It was already sold out. I'm not going. So I didn't go. So when he says this to me, hey, when I do you a favor, you can't pass it on. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, that week when I did the podcast. I'm like, yeah. He goes, someone showed up here and said they were here to take your place. I'm like, what? I go, did they say my last name? He's like, yeah. They said Pete Mitchell. He said he couldn't be here, so I'm here to take his place.
What in the world?
I go, who was it? He goes, I don't know. I sent him home. I go, I don't know you. Get out of here. I'm like, who in the world is this? I literally, so
that's
here's
crazy.
What I think. It's either someone who listened to the podcast or what I think, what it finally hit me is I was like, I bet you anything, someone showed up for the training that was sold out, sees my name on the list, but I didn't sign in. I might have been the only person who hadn't signed in, and he goes, oh, well, I'm here to take his spot.
Sneaky, man.
Like, I'm thinking that's what it was, because I'm like, first of all, all of my friends who shoot. So it wouldn't be anyone else. And secondly, I can't imagine ever telling someone, go take my spot. Like, I'm a business owner. I would never do that to another business owner. I'd be like, hey, dude, you told me that I could come. I can't make it. Can my buddy Sam come? Yeah. So I can't imagine ever saying that. But then I also wouldn't put it past me that I tell someone, hey, you could take my spot. Yeah.
It's like that sounds like something I wouldn't do, but also something I maybe would do.
I literally don't know of a single person who shoots in the state of California who they don't already know.
Yeah, so that's exactly right.
How could this be? So I mean, it was just, and he was apparently pretty pissed. He was apparently pretty pissed that I could do that.
So did he get calmed down? Did he get
because this is literally a month later.
Yeah.
And, he's just like telling me. And so he was like, well, I feel better knowing that you didn't do that. I'm like, dude, I literally, I'm like racking my brain going, okay, the people who I know who have guns around here, did I say something to them? But no.
I'm sure what happened is it was kind of like this one time when my family was at Chi-Chi's years ago. And we're waiting in line for a really long time, and they've underestimated how long it was going to be for us to wait. And so they're, the hostess is yelling for like, hey, is the Smith family here? Where's the Smith family? And it was like the party of exactly our size. And so the lady looks at my aunt and is like, are you guys the Smith party? And she's like, oh, we could be. So done. That's how you get seated at Chi-Chi's if it existed.
I have done that so many times. Like when they do like the last call for the Smith party. Oh, right here.
Done. We're here.
The fifth member couldn't make it. Sorry, it's just the four of us. I do that all the time.
Yep.
I wait until last call before doing it. I do wait.
Where clearly nobody's coming.
Right.
Yeah. Good stuff, man.
Or if I'm leaving and my name's been in for like a half hour, I'll go up to a family of four. Hey, if they call Pete family of four, go ahead and take it, man.
There you go, man. Yep.
I pass it on.
Good for you, man. Share the love.
Yeah.
Yep. Pay it forward. Hashtag.
I love it. I love it.
Man.
So, hey, man, tell me about some of this stuff you want to talk about.
Yeah, man. So I'm a little bit torn here when all of the riot stuff is getting reported. And on the one hand, I think we have a whole group of people that are trying to really mitigate how bad it actually is and pretend like it's not happening. We've got another group that's pretending like it's everywhere. Now, let's face in facts, like most places, like things are pretty chill as far as that goes. There might be some increased tension or whatever. Most people are not rioting in the streets by God's grace. So praise the Lord for that. But we are seeing some of the riots get pretty dicey. The Kenosha, Wisconsin stuff was kind of crazy. And I think it was one of the Portland cities where the protesters actually went through a suburb with a guillotine. Now, they were on their way to somewhere else, but they're yelling at the citizens in their home saying, you need to give us shelter, blah, 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 just, general communist talk. And I'm thinking like, that escalates things just a little bit. Again, like I think most are a little bit too worried right now, or they're assuming that it's happening in their city. It's happening places. It's bad. It's not happening right there where you're at. But nonetheless, I think it's worth doing some real basic training. Like I know that a lot of guys, they're listening to our podcast because they like guns, they like shooting. Maybe they do some competition shooting, which I would actually say is really helpful. Yep. It's a little bit different than what we're talking about, but it's certainly really, really helpful. And so a lot of us, when we go to the range, we're used to going and shooting at some targets, putting some holes in paper and feeling like, well, that was fun. But very seldom are most gun owners actually training for if something was going down. That kind of training just does not happen much. And I'll even acknowledge I don't do near as much of that as I should, right? And so one of the things, as soon as we talk about it, it's hard to know, like, okay, well, where do we start on that? Where does the average guy who's just been into hunting guns, maybe he just got his AR not long ago, maybe he doesn't even have an AR yet. He's like, man, what kind of training do I need to do? And so whether you're involved in a QRF, whether you're just thinking about defending your home, there's a few things that I think we all should be preparing for and training. And it doesn't involve, I think you should, if you can, pay the $700, go get some real training. Go to Thunder Ranch, you really should do that. We all should be doing that. But just in case things go down quicker than you have the chance to get in on one of those classes, here's a few things that we're going to recommend. The first thing is we want to talk a little bit about marksmanship. And I think we've already talked about either you're doing, your competition shooting and you're getting some real tactical training in that. But you're normally doing from a standing position. Some, depending on the competition, might be a little bit different. Maybe some kneeling. What the general rule is that you want to work on your marksmanship at 5 meters, 25 meters, 100 meters, and 300 meters. So think about how that escalates. Like 5 meters is
now, as an American, I don't know how big 5 meters is.
Yeah. Let's just switch that over to yards.
Okay,
like the official, they'll say meters. Just say yards. It's fine. Like think football field, right? You need to be able to shoot at if you were on your own 25 and you're in the 4th down, you kind of know what that is from that goal post or from that end zone. You're probably going to want to punt. Well, okay, let's practice shooting at that distance. So think 5, 25, 100 yards, 300 yards. And you want to be able to shoot from standing, kneeling, and prone position. That's on your belly shooting. And being able to shoot maybe 3 to 5 rounds in a relatively tight grouping. So if you want to do it the cheap way, get yourself paper plate, put it out there, be able to hit that paper plate as best you can. If you're thinking maybe man-sized target, you might have something bigger. I don't like to go and check my paper plate every time, so I like to have something that makes noise so that as I'm shooting it, I know if I'm hitting it right then, right? That way I can actually make some adjustments, in the moment if necessary. So 5, 25, 100, and 300. And so think about getting a few mags. Practice with your 22 if you want to. It's good to get it with, your fighting weapon. But, man, get out there. Start with standing. Not with a bipod, not with anything else, not up against a tree. Not that that's not a good skill to have, but practice from your own, just you yourself as your shooting platform. Just, from a ready up position, bam, do 5 yard, see how fast you can respond and put 5 rounds in a tight grouping right there. Then do the same thing from kneeling and on your belly. Then do the same thing at 25 yards. Now, for the most part, that 5 yard, you're going to be practicing with your pistol a lot of the time. Practice with your long gun too, man. You're not going to want to change guns if somebody pops up 5 yards from you, right? So 5, 25, 100, and 300. If you can practice, put 5 rounds, 4 rounds, somewhere around there in a relatively tight grouping, just inside of a plate, at each of those distances, you're going to be doing okay. Now, probably, I don't know. First of all, you have any thoughts on this, Pete? Is this training you've done before? Do you ever get out there and be able to?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
I do.
You've done this kind of stuff.
Normally, non-quarantine times, I do a lot of training. But most of my training is movement-based training because realistically, you better be moving. Yeah. The old joke is when you hunt, and obviously we all know I'm not a hunter, but when you do, you wait for the deer to stop. You don't shoot it while it's running away. And so you always want to be running or moving because you're a lot harder to shoot. Oh, look at that.
Hey, mister. You're exactly right. Be difficult to shoot. And the fact of, do you just think as a hunter watching a deer move, how much harder that makes it to hit the thing?
Yeah.
You want to be like that. And that involves some side to side moving, by the way, not just I'm running in a straight line away from them.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You're zigzagging.
So as an example, last Tuesday's training, it was all based on movement. And what we spent a lot of time on a couple of different exercises. And one of them, we had a steel popper up. So it was really fun because then everyone knows if you hit it or not because, you
hear it or don't.
Or don't.
Yeah.
And then one of the main exercises that we focused on was moving backwards and to the side while shooting. At first it was one target, then shooting multiple targets. So when you're moving and shooting, you basically shoot when your foot is in the air. And the reason for that is because if you wait until it lands, what happens if you land on a pothole? What happens if there's a board there, a brick, a rock, whatever? And now all of a sudden you're, all over the place, and your shot can be all over the place.
Yep.
And so like this particular exercise, we started out probably like literally 2 feet away, holstered pistol. And then we had to move back, 2 steps before drawing our pistol. And the reason behind that, as Michael was telling us, he goes, look, that's just so you get used to, you have to move, not just draw and shoot, because you want to, get off the X, right? I mean, that's the number one thing. Get off the X. Don't be standing on the X when everything goes down. One of the things that I took away, like literally my big takeaway from that whole training night, and I told it because we always everyone goes through and says, here's what my takeaway was. Mine was, unfortunately, I'm using my red dot, and it takes me too long to acquire the red dot because I'm not practicing my presentation enough.
Yep.
And when I'm using iron sights, I'm really quick because you can really cheat on irons. Like you can just see down the side of the gun, especially if you've got a nice little fiber optic on one end and fiber optics on the other, especially if they're different colors. I mean, it is really easy, really quick, but I really like my red dot. And so I've just kind of committed, all right, I'm training on my red dot. Like that's what I carry most of the time. That's what I'm going to train on. And the problem with the red dot is if you don't present it properly, you won't see the red dot. Like you got to literally move the gun until you find the red dot. And that can be a problem. Now, fortunately, we were so close to the target. We started, like I said, at 2 feet, maybe 10 feet at the furthest. I'm point shooting, and I'm, getting all A zones because we're so freaking close, right? You can point shoot. But it taught me that lesson, man. I got to practice my presentation a lot more than I have here at the house. I got to dry fire.
Yeah, dry firing helps a lot, man. Obviously, great caution when you're doing that. But man, great value in doing that, man. I'm glad you brought up the movement because I think if you first master the basic, like, what we were talking about, 520, 500, 300, but you add to it, all right, next thing as I'm doing the movement and I'm doing back and forth, and you practice some of that, I would also add, we got to be practicing mag changes. Yeah. I would say this is where I am so bad at mag changes. And so a lot of guys, let's face in facts, a lot of guys don't have any type of a carry rig. They don't even have a belt, right? A lot of guys aren't anywhere in that. So, I mean, they go to the range, they have their gun bag, they pull out their gun, they throw a mag in, they shoot, and they're like, that was fun. And they take it out, they put in another one. Hardly anybody has been, I shouldn't say hardly anybody, but a lot of us haven't been practicing mag changes. Man, get into those mag change habits. As you've talked about, like think about only loading 29, 28 rounds so that you can do a fast tactical reload. I know there's different theories, whatever theory you jump on for that, practice to reload like that. All those kinds of things. But if you're practicing movement shooting, you're practicing that marksmanship at those various distances and practicing mag changes, you're at least going to be in a situation where you're not worthless if it goes down. Right. Then that's what we really want to get at. And I'm thinking, like, I don't expect the average citizen to be a full-scale operator. But if you can get to where you're reasonably proficient at those distances, you can do a mag change, you can do some movement shooting, real basic, and you just get out practice enough that you're not completely a wreck at it. Well, then if something goes down, you're going to be useful. If all you've got to do is say, all right, here is the field of view that you're going to be in charge of guarding, would you just go? That you can do that. Next level, you get a little bit of practice about, finding cover and concealment and finding legitimate concealment when you do. That kind of stuff, man, that is some basic stuff that I think we all need to be doing. We should practice at dry fire. Heck, I've said this before, get yourself a squirt gun or a Nerf gun and practice around your house if you don't have anything like that. Anything else, like it's at least some kind of practice on movement shooting. Like just do something to get your shooting platform a little bit honed. But that's the big thing I wanted to share. And I'm wondering if, I don't know, how are we on time? We got some time. Should we talk about kit related to all this?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
and let me just comment real quickly on the mag chain stuff. if you go to an indoor range, like that's what I go to because the outdoor ranges are too far away. You are typically at every indoor range I've ever seen, you're allowed to do rapid reloads. Yeah. They just don't usually want rapid fire because idiots out there start, spraying and praying and start shooting the roof and sides and all that. But so what I'll do a lot is I will only put 1 to 3 rounds per magazine. And a lot of times I like to mix it up so I don't know how many I have in each one. So I'm not mentally preparing for it.
Nice.
But if it's a mag change day, boom, boom, all of a sudden you got slide lock back, drop the mag, slap in the next one, go to town. And you can usually do that just fine.
Yep.
The other thing too is when it comes to, training and mag changes, this can be harder to do at ranges, but I like to practice my non-dominant hand, right? Because I can't guarantee in a gunfight I'm going to be able to use my right hand. I'm a righty. I can't guarantee it. What happens if it's injured? What happens if it's dead weight? I can't guarantee. So you need to also practice, how do you do a mag change with your non-dominant hand? That includes everything from, dropping the mag out, which for me means I usually use my middle finger because it's just easier for me to crank my middle finger back to hit the mag release. You might need to then put the gun in between your knees, grab another mag, slap it in. How are you going to rack it? Right? Because keep in mind, you only got one hand. We got to rack that sucker. So what are we doing? Are you sliding on a belt buckle? Are you using your shoe? What are you using to rack that slide? Now, I will say this. When you have an RMR on your pistol, really freaking easy to rack the slide. Like you can hit just about anything you want and you're going to rack the slide just fine.
That's awesome. That is a benefit of there are downsides to an RMR, but man, that is a benefit of an RMR on your pistol is you talk about being able
You're going to rack it. You're going to rack that sucker.
You're going to rack it accidentally.
If you can't rack it with an RMR, you really shouldn't have it. That says a lot about you as a user.
Yeah. Well, speaking of optics, so we were talking earlier about being proficient up to 300 yards with your long gun. That for a lot of guys, they're thinking like, man, well, I've only got my red dot that I've never tried to shoot anything past 50 yards with that thing. And so it might affect the type of optics you want if you're gonna be in that situation where you have an all-around gun. So I made the decision I'm gonna have an AR that is going to be my all-around multi-purpose utility gun. What I did is I put a Vortex Strike Eagle on it. So that thing dialed all the way back, and I think my other buddy Dan is actually watching. I know he's got the same one on his. He has a very similar setup to me. You can crank that thing all the way back where there's no magnification. Big old wide field of view, has an etched reticle on there that you can also light up if you want to. But I can use that in short range. I can do whatever I need to do. But if I need to crank that up, if I've got to hit something at 300 yards, hopefully I'd still be able to hit it without magnifying. But man, I can crank that down, and I can stack rounds at 300 yards. I can even do something at 600 if I needed to. And it's got the markings on the reticle to match that. A lot of guys just shooting iron sights. It's going to get a lot harder, doable, but a lot harder to hit things with iron sights at 300 yards. So being able to pay attention with what you're doing. Make sure that when you're thinking of the situation that you're in, you've planned your optic around that.
Yeah.
So definitely worthwhile. And then practicing with it, man. Like
the other thing too to be thinking about with your AR specifically, I would say your AR specifically, maybe you should have multiple optics on it. So like I have on some of mine, I have a red dot as my primary. Because I'm also thinking I'm in a very urban environment, right? I'm not going out to the woods and hunting or obviously anything with an AR. But so I have that usually set for 25 yards, mainly because, again, for me to do it for 50, which would probably be where I'd like to be with that red dot, I got to go out to freaking, Timbuktu to another range and then, count out the 50 yards. And, so I'm just like, look, I'll just do it at 25 because that's what I can do at the indoor. But I also have on some of them 45-degree irons. So they're coming off the sides. And I do have that at 100 yards. So I went out to an outdoor range to be able to do that. And so, obviously you're turning the gun slightly. It's irons, it's harder, all of that. However, if I need that additional distance and I want to be as accurate as possible, I've got that. I mean, a lot of people will do that. Like a lot of people will put an RMR on an AR, and it's not their primary. They'll just put it on there. Maybe that's on the 45-degree angle, and that one's set for 25 yards, and they've got their main sight that's for 100 or something like that.
Yep. Right on, man. I think that's the whole canted sights are good anyway. If you have a failure with your red dot or with whatever, you've got backup, and man, iron sights work.
All of mine have irons. My favorite AR has hold down irons, which I never use because I've got the red dot. But if the red dot goes bad, battery dies, whatever, pop those irons up, good to go.
Yep, you're in good shape there. That's the other thing when you're even thinking about if you're going to get an optic like I've got, where I don't need the red, I don't need the light. If my battery goes bad, it's etched on the reticle, or it's etched on the glass. I'm going to still be able to use it. My light up just helps. And so thinking of those kinds of things, you never know that situation where you're like, oh crap, I don't have batteries. The other thing is have backup batteries. Like that should be part of your kit. Couple other things I'm thinking about, like a lot of guys haven't thought through what their loadout looks like. So if it goes down, it's not just your gun that you need. Obviously, like you're going to need rounds. Well, how many rounds are you going to carry? And I would say a really inexpensive first step. I mean, obviously, I'm recommending getting yourself plates. And I've been telling people, like, get yourself level 4 plates. I was explaining to somebody that, like, if I was in some kind of law enforcement, or I've got a friend who's a bounty hunter and he wears the lightweight soft armor because most of what he's up against is, a handgun, but he's going to need it every day. And so it's going to protect against that. That's whatever. And then if he's got some scarier threat, he's got, the added heavier stuff. If it's going down for you and I'm going to want at least level 3 plus maybe 4. Cause so I'm like, I'm not worried as much about weight. I am concerned about it, but like, if it's going down and I'm in that situation, I want all the protection I can get. And I don't have to worry about day by day being annoyed by the weight. So think about level 3 plus or 4 carrier, and then you're going to put your loadout on that thing. But if you just need some basic, like this is just for home defense if it goes really bad, man, you can get yourself, people will make fun of this, you can get yourself the cheap Condor gun belt, right? You probably should go a step up beyond that. But if you're really looking to not spend much, it works, man, right? And get yourself a couple of mag pouches, AR mag pouches.
I can't wait to tell you what I use, man.
Yeah, I believe it. You went all out, I know.
No, I didn't. No.
You not, are you rocking Condor?
Dude,
I'm so proud of you if you're rocking Condor.
Not Condor specifically, but maybe even a level lower.
Did you get it off Wish.com? If you got it off Wish.com, I will make fun of you. I love you. I will make fun of you if you got it from Wish.
I didn't get it off of Wish.com. I did get the Midway belt, their competition belt, right? So it's 2-part. Nice. It's Velcroed.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was like $23. And I'm like, dude, 23, there we go.
Well, and this is what we're talking about. So, I mean, I don't know about for everybody else. For me, if I'm going to buy plate carrier, it's going to be like, I'm going to feel it in the budget that much. Right. Like it's going to be a pretty significant pinch, especially if we're going to get the right kind of thing. So like, man, but most people, you could drop $25 on a Condor or a Midway belt and you're going to have it. And then you can get the $20 really simple Molly style AR pouches. And so for less than $50,
I don't even have the really nice ones. For my Glock mags, I literally whatever they had on Amazon that was the cheapest, that's what's rocking on the belt.
Do it. That's good. Well, and so here's the thing. It doesn't have to be that expensive to meet what we're going to use it for.
With that freaking crappy setup. Like when when you look at guys who compete, right? They have literally the $100 mag pouch per mag pouch. It's got rollers on it, so it's quicker to whip that magazine out. I'm like, no, I'm rocking this sucker from Amazon, baby. Let's do it.
Man. That's what I'm talking about. That, hey, you know what? That it works. So, man, think about though. Some of these guys, you can do a halfway decent loadout. You could have your loaded mags in a belt. I would recommend have 120 to 130 rounds. Maybe you have 4 mags that you carry on your belt. and you've got one more that's going to go in the gun, when things get wild. So like, I mean, you could carry more than that, but that gets you in a pretty good situation. Right?
This is a pretty good question here. Do you have extra magazines loaded in your vehicles?
Oh, that's a good. Yes. Well, hold on. Yes, but not for the AR.
Well, yeah. I get that, right? Because most of us don't necessarily drive around with an AR.
Yes.
I usually still have 10 AR mags with 28 rounds in them and a crap ton of Glock mags. Like literally, I got Glock mags for days. I have, good tip, guys. If you haven't done this, literally number your magazines, put a number on them so that way you can see it. And that way, like when you're training and you got a problem with the magazine, hey, you know what, magazine 12 over here, I got to disassemble it, put it back together, see if I can fix it because it's not, forward's not, or the follower's not working properly or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so in my door on my vehicle, I have a 21 round Glock mag with self-defense rounds in it.
Yep.
I've got at least one for my Glock 43 in case I'm rocking that, right? Because the 21 round magazine, I can use it on my 17, my 19, my 26, and my 34, all of which are carry guns for me.
Yep.
And then, but if I'm rocking the Glock 43, I'm like, dude, what if I need a backup, right? And then because I still have on my permit a 1911, I also have at least one 10-round magazine loaded for the 1911. And those are all in my car door. And to me, it's like worst case scenario. If you have to, I got extra mags ready to go to town. And I still am always carrying at least one extra mag on me.
And for relatively inexpensive, those add up, but you're not talking about crazy money to get another mag. I always think about right now, it costs, at least with an AR, it costs about the same to get a halfway decent mag as it does to buy a box of ammo, right? So it's cheaper to get another mag than it is to get, the ammo to fill it with. And so go ahead and have some extra mags, man. And especially if you've got a loadout ready, you've got your belt with, say 150 rounds on it. I think that's legitimate. I think 100, you probably get by with 120. You're in a pretty good spot, man.
So you carry 150 on you?
I mean, not for my conceal, just for...
No. I know, but I got to do the math here real quick. How many do I carry? Wow. All right. I gotta up my game here because I'm usually carrying 4 mags on my belt, not for the AR, for my pistol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm almost always rocking the 17-round mags. It doesn't matter what I'm shooting. Most of the time I'm shooting the 19 because, again, do I really give a crap if the magazine's hanging out the bottom of the pistol?
Who cares? Yeah.
I want to shoot it, and I want more rounds. So let it hang out. I use a Glock 17 mag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the time.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, when I do carry AR mags, I'm carrying typically 4 on me at a time at 28 rounds each. So whatever that is.
Not bad, man. That works.
I'm not up to the 168 or whatever that you are.
No, it's 150 rounds total. So that's 4 on my belt, 1 in the gun.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's not, and I would say that's going an extra one. That's more than I probably need. But yeah.
Hey, better to have more.
In general, the only thing I would say is the guys that double stack their mags on their chest rig or triple stack, and then it's man, if you got to get low, you can't. There's no way you can lay on your belly. Heck, I don't know how you even
right.
How do you could do the Superman by when you lay on your belly and try to shoot. Anyway, that's something that I'm just thinking for a lot of us that aren't looking, and we don't have a whole lot of money in this, but man, you could get your Condor belt, you could get your mag pouches, you could buy the ammo, you could be in a situation where if it went down, you could defend your home. The other thing, I don't want to take too much time on this. This is not really gear, but related to training. Just think about if we are dealing with protests or riots that are going into neighborhoods, which is not happening very much. Let's just be honest. But if it did happen, And as they talk about it,
Unless you live in Portland.
Unless you live in Portland, which is, a little scary there. Think about your house. Think about, okay, if they were coming down the street from that way, what window do I need to be watching out of? What do I need to do to make sure that my house is defensible? Think through like where people are sitting. Think about all this kind of stuff. It's going to help a lot. So that stuff matters. Be thinking that through. But mostly we wanted to make sure everybody's got basic gear, basic training, so that you are not worthless if it goes down. So,
yeah, good call. Good call.
Yeah, man. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, that was somebody on our fellow Dan on our feed right now is mentioning, hey, paint pens work great for marking. So anytime you're grabbing a paint pen, you can mark up your mag, know which mag is which. Numbering your mags can be a really good idea. I wouldn't necessarily put your name on it in case, maybe if you're going to the range, put your name on that one, but I don't want to drop it somewhere and it be found. Come back to me. But some good stuff. Thank you guys for jumping on here, making some good comments. But yeah, marking with the paint pen, those Sharpie paint pens are handy. Cool. Any other thoughts, Pete, before we finish up here?
Nah, man, I think that's just some great info. Again, biggest thing I'd say, guys, is when you train, you got to train with movement. And if all you do is go to an indoor range, you're usually very limited on the movement you can do. Most indoor ranges won't even let you draw from a holster. So if you conceal carry, you need to practice drawing from the holster, which means, like, I practice all the time. I wear a T-shirt, right, like I got on right now, and you got to practice. One hand is grabbing the T-shirt, yanking that sucker up. The other hand is now pulling the firearm out, going to town. You got to practice that stuff. That means you got to do that at home. A big thing, again, that I use here at the house is I've got a CERT is what it's called. Mm-hmm. It's a laser Glock 17. They make it in Glock 17 and M&P. Whatever, I'm not an M&P guy, so it's whatever the full size M&P is. I think they also have subcompact versions of it. They don't have a Glock 19, or I would have gotten that because that's what I use most of the time. That is a great tool for practicing in the house. All of your magazines that are made for either the M&P or holsters that are made for the Glock or the M&P are going to work with that. So, like, if you want to practice in the waistband holster, use that holster, use that CERT, and you can practice in the house. You can practice, getting it out with your shirt. You can practice all of that. And so I definitely recommend that. The other thing, too, is I bought, and I'm going to test it a lot this week because I'm going to spend a lot of time on dry fire here at the house because I want to get my presentation on the RMR down. But I've got a dry fire magazine that's made for the Glock, and I want to review it. So next week I'll give you my thoughts on it.
Cool.
I got the one that's made for the Glock 17, again, because I can use it on the 19. But what that does, that magazine, is I don't have to have a complete different slide and, upper and trigger and all that. And basically I don't have to re-rack the slide each time. So it just resets the trigger. It's basically a trigger reset, but it's done as a magazine. So when I'm done, just drop it out, stick my rounds back in it, and I'm good to go.
You're ready to rock.
Yeah. So definitely, you gotta get movement in. You have to train moving, because in the real world, if you stand still, you get shot.
Yep.
So you have to be moving always.
Yeah, buddy. That's huge. This is good advice, Pete. I know we're wrapping it up, so I'm not going to talk more about this, but just encourage you guys to Google bounding overwatch, which is also called leapfrogging, moving overwatch, or the buddy system. Go and learn what that is and learn how to do it. Talk to your buddies about it. Learn what center peel is, or often called the Australian peel, which is basically bounding overwatch in reverse. Learn a little bit about perpendicular and parallel and L-shaped ambushes. Yeah. That kind of stuff, just knowing what it is and the difference between cover and concealment, being able to recognize it. Let me just tell you, if you are being shot at with a 308, getting behind a car door is not cover. It might provide concealment, limited. It is not cover. You need to think through what you are getting shot at with and what actually will stop it. And that's
and you got to think too, most of your walls in your house here in America are concealment, not necessarily cover.
I know.
I mean, the drywall I got, I'm pretty sure anything can shoot through it.
Yeah.
Certainly an AR round is going to shoot through it.
Yeah. That's important to think about. So in a lot of cases, about the only place you would have actual cover would be in your basement. A lot of places, it's.
And for those of us in California, we don't really know what a basement is. We've heard about these kinds of things.
Yeah, man.
We don't really know what they are.
Yeah. So thinking that through, man, that's all this matters. So anyway, that's all I have for today, man. As always, check out LE Arms. I've got some special information about a new class we're offering that I happen to know everybody wants. And I'm not going to give detail on it. I'm just going to say, get yourself to learms.net. Be watching it over the next week, especially as soon as this Friday. Get on there, watch the classes we're offering, because something real special, Lord willing, will be offered at the end of the week here. And if it does, it's going to fill up quick. We're going to have as many options for it as possible, but let's just say a lot of people need to know how to assemble a certain type of bang stick, and we want to teach you how to assemble and maintain that bang stick. And a lot of people are going to be interested in this class. So you heard it here first. I can't tell you what it is. It's a secret. I'm not allowed to talk about it. I'm probably going to be in trouble for saying as much as I did. Just get to the website, learms.net, this weekend. All right?
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode. Take care, everybody. If you got any comments, questions, anything like that, leave it on the Facebook page, and we will address it on the next podcast. All right, guys, cool. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the From Concealment Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.